Hello guys, welcome once again to my channel. And in the last video, we succeeded in designing our home. And right after our view, there's nothing in here yet. We were able to design our home, and not just design it, we're also able to get our validations working properly. So if I did all this, you can see I tried to get in a name here, and then an email here, and then this. You can see that we are not allowed to submit this. Now check this. This is disabled. All right. So we're also able to get our validations working properly, and then we're also able to fix the cause error issue. All right. So this cause error issue was basically caused by the JWT package that we are using. All right. So in today's video, we're going to get straight into things. So first of all, we are going to look at authentication. So in the last video, what happens is that if you try to submit this form now, you're going to get a 401 error. And the reason you're going to get a 401 error is because this guy is not yet authenticated, right? So since this guy is not yet authenticated, you're going to get a 401 error. So what we're going to try to do right now is whenever he clicks on the submit button and he is not authenticated, we're going to pop up a modal, and then with the modal we can now ask him to enter his email, and then once he enters his email and then his password, then we now authenticate that user. And then afterwards, the user is then allowed to perform create operations, view operations, delete operations, and read operations, and all that. All right, so let's just get straight into things. Before I get into the content of this video, I'd like to say if you have not subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell whenever I publish a new video. Okay, so right now let's just get straight into things. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do now is let's head over here to our application, and then what we are going to do now is once the submit button is clicked, we want to be able to dispatch an event. So basically, we're going to have a modal. So okay, let's design the modal screen first. And after we're done with designing the modal screen, we are going to then trigger an action. So whenever there is a 401 using a HTTP interceptor, whenever there's a 401, we're going to intercept the request, dispatch an action that will then lead to the modal popping up for the user to see. Let's basically design our modal right now. And so what I'm going to do right now is right within our views, all right? So in our views in here within our auth, okay, we already have a folder here called login modal. So I'm going to create our components folder here, and then I'm also going to create index.js file here, and also I'm going to also create a login.modal file or a login modal.js file. And within our components, I'm going to have our modal form go in here. Yes. All right. What I'm going to do now is within our login modal, I'm going to have a functional component here. So this is going to be login modal. Then in here, I'm also going to have another functional component here too. Not React Native, sorry. So see, and then this is going to be modal form, and then I'm going to say just have a bold tag here saying this is a modal form, and here I'm going to call our modal. I'm going to call our modal form, and let's import modal form from our components, and then a modal form. All right. So yep, this should do right now. The last thing we want to do is we want to export default. So default here is going to be our login modal. So right in our modal form, let me get rid of this now. I'm going to import a couple of things at the head here. So we're going to import modal. We're also going to import button and then loader from semantic UI, not CSS, semantic UI React, since they are components. And now we're going to go straight into designing our form. And we are going to call the modal. So we'll need the header. And in our modal header, we're going to have login here. But we need to wrap everything in here within a modal so that this is recognized as a modal. All right. So let me just copy this here for our header. So that this is recognized as a modal component. Sorry. And then for the open state, we want to have a modal state. So I'm going to declare a modal state here, which is going to, and then we're going to call the function that we set it to set modal state, and then use state, right? False. So initially this should be false, and now we want to import our use state, and we're also going to make use of use effect. So let's quickly import that too. All right, then we also want a function here that should close this modal. So I'm going to call this close modal, and then close modal. All right. So for now, we just log to the console, say this modal was closed. No. Let's just do things correctly. So I'm going to call set modal state to false. So basically, whenever close modal is clicked, we want to hide the value of this modal by setting it to false. So the initial value is set to false because we don't want to see the modal. So if we wanted to see the modal, the initial value will be true, meaning that we want to see the modal. And then within this modal, we are going to make use of formic again. So formic. So let's just import formic quickly. So I'm going to say import formic, all right, and from formic. And also, let's also import our use selector hooks for Redux, and I'll use dispatch, right? Yes, from React Redux. All right, and now for our form here, we're going to set a couple of props. So let's see. The first thing we are going to set here is going to be our initial value. So initial values are going to be the fields. So let me just declare our fields now. So here we're going to have our fields and then set, let me call it set values. And of course, we're going to have our handle field change. And this will be using our custom hook which we created earlier on in the last video, which is called use form fields. And then in here, we're going to have the email and then the password. So let's import that quickly. So we're going to import use form fields from, so this is from helpers, hooks form input. Okay, so right now we have declared our fields and then our initial values is going to take our fields. Also, we will need to validate. So our validate is going to take our custom validation function. And for this, I'm just going to declare this validation for now. We're not going to do anything just yet to our validation function. And then, so yep, we are then going to set up a couple of visual responses that our application is going to display, as well as certain actions that it's going to respond to. And so let's just get this. And then, all right, now in here, the first is the error. So the next is touched, and then the last is going to be the handle law. All right. So in here, we are then going to define our form properties. So the first thing I'm going to call is going to be our form. So we have our form here. And for our form, I'm going to have a class name of UI, form left align 6 column and segment. Let's just have the method as post and then the name as form. All right. Let's just get this down too. And then the ID should be form too. Okay, so within our form, we want to call our modal content. So the content of our modal will be wrapped inside this form. So I'm going to call modal content, and then in our modal content, we are going to then define a couple of things. But before then, let me just call our own submit here, and then have a function here called login user. And I'm going to create that login user here. So const login user. And just to prevent the browser's default behavior, we're going to call prevent default. Right now, that's fine. So right in our modal content, in our modal content, I'm going to have a div here. And then this div is going to have the class name of field. And within our div, we are going to have our email label. So, yep, let me just call our label here. And then this is going to be email. And of course, the input type has to be an email because our label is specifying that it's an email. So our input type is an email, but our input type also has a couple of properties that we want to attach to it. So first is going to be the ID. So for the ID, this is going to be the email. Then the value, we want fields.email. So basically the fields.email file. Then for unchanged event, we want to use our custom hook function. So we're going to call a handle field change. So basically, once there's a change, it moves the value into this to our email field state. And then here comes formic. So on blur, we want to call a handle blur function. So basically, whenever the user clicks on it and then moves out of it, if he does not fill the form properly, it throws that error. And then last here is going to be the name, which is the email. And now after this, after our div here, I want to basically display our response here. So I'm going to have a class name here, error form response. just for our response messages to look. Get this below here. So you have email, and then you have this is the password, input type of and then right after our modal contents, so let me just clear this up right now. Right after our modal contents, we are going to call our modal actions. So basically, these actions are just buttons that we can click to, say submit a form, dismiss a modal, and all that cool stuff. So here we will have a button. I'll actually have two buttons here, but let's go with the first. Then we then get into the second. So here, this is going to be a submit button type because this is within this form. And then we want positive so that we can have, I think it's blue color, right? That's positive. So here we're going to have login, and then we would have a negative, which is a red color. And this red negative is going to be for closing our modal. So we have negative, and then on click, we want to call our close modal function here. And then this is going to be our close. Okay, so right now we have our form perfectly set up. So what I'm going to do right next is, even if I save this right now, okay, and then I head over to the browser, we won't be able to see the form, like we can't really see this form. So what I want to do is, I want us to be able to see this form. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to head to our application header, or not really, sorry, not our application header. Oh, sorry, not, oh, no, no, not really, not application header. Let's do this in our route. So in our route, before our header right up here, we're going to call our login modal. And we don't get the imports here. I think I skipped something. So let's go back to login modal. And I think I might need this. Why did this not import? So let's go to our route. Okay. So we're going to import login modal from views, sorry, not layout, views auth, and then login modal. So just to be sure that this is it, yeah. Okay, so we have our login modal, and right now I'm going to save that. And if I head over to our browser, you still would not see our login modal. Let me refresh this. You still would not see our login modal. Okay, so if we wanted to see our login modal, let's experiment on something here. So in our login modal, I head to our modal form. I'm going to set the property of this to true. So what I'm simply saying is display our modal. And now if we get here, you can see our modal right here. So this is our login modal. And if I click close, you can see that our modal disappears. If I refresh this again, you can see our modal is present. So we basically don't want our modal to always be present. We want it to be absent and to be triggered only when the user tries to submit a form and then he's unauthenticated. So what I'm going to do now is let's just head back to um, our code, right? And then I'm going to change this back to false. And then I'm going to head to our HTTP interceptor. Okay, so you can see here that in our HTTP interceptor, where we intercept request, made a mistake. I'm saying if response status is 4.1, just like this console and then return the response. But instead of doing this, I want to be able to dispatch an action. All right. So before I do this, let's basically create the action type. So I'm going to head over to, or let me just do this, our action types. And in our action types, I'm going to have a new action type here of auth, so auth.js. And in our auth.js, I'm going to define all the action types here for our auth. So here we're going to have login loading, and then this is going to be login auth, right? And then we're going to have, I like to give some spaces here. So we're going to have, next up is going to be login success, and then you have login success, and then login error, and here you have login error, and my bad, I missed the const here, and then you have show modal login, so show modal login, and this is going to be show modal login, and then we have hide modal login, and then this is going to be our hide modal login. And why am I always missing my const here? And then the last is going to be our clear auth state, and here we're going to have. Okay, so I'm going to save this right now, and then let's just head back to our login modal. Sorry, not our login modal, actually our modal form. And then right in our modal form, we're going to handle our validation rules. So for our validation rules, we want to set certain rules for the email and then for the password. So for the email, I'm going to, I think I have a regular expression here that I already wrote for emails. So let's just go over to create guest form, and yep, right here. So I'm going to copy this for emails, and then now let's head over to modal form, and then let me paste this in here. All right, so the last is going to be the password error message. So for the password, basically, if the password is empty, you can go on to check the length property, but I'm just going to be checking if the password is empty. I'm going to say password field is required. Otherwise, it should just be a blank string, and then we want to return our errors. Okay, so we have this. The next thing is we want to submit this form. And in order for us to be able to submit this form, we would have to dispatch an action. We'll have to communicate with the reducer, and we'll also have to make an API request. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create within our services, I'm going to create a new service here, and I'm going to call that service auth service. So let's go ahead and create a new file here, and sorry, and call this auth service. Okay, and then let's import HTTP service from HTTP service. And auth service is going to have a log user in function or log user in service function. And our log user in service function, we're going to create an instance of a HTTP service, all right? And then we are going to call our URL, so sign up, so not sign up now. Let me just call this URL so that it has a better generic name. And if we remember, the endpoint was auth login, so let's just head back here so that I can remind you guys. So let's go to routes, and then you can see auth login. All right, so let's just head back in here, and then after we have set the URL, we're going to call our HTTP, and then we want to post the data, and the data is going to be the credentials, which is the email and the password, which we are going to pass in here, credentials, and then the URL, and of course this is a post request. So this returns a promise, so we have to call the then on it, and then for every errors we just catch the error, and here in our errors I'm going to log our errors before I return our error. Alright, and here I'm also going to log our data response before I return our data response. Okay, so I'm going to save this right now, and then we are also going to head to set up our action. So basically, our login, our auth actions. So I'm going to head over to our actions, and in our actions, I'm going to create a new action here. All right, not action types, but a new action here, and this action is going to be called auth actions.js. And for auth actions, for now, we're going to be keeping things really simple. So we're only going to just have our login action that takes our credentials. All right, so it takes our credentials, and then we are going to return a dispatch method, and we're going to dispatch a couple of things that we have already defined, even though we have not set reducer listeners for them. Basically, we've not set our reducers to be able to, respond on certain actions, but we're still going to call them anyway. So the first is going to be our login loading. So what happens is once this user triggers this request, it's going to load. So we want to basically call our login loading. Then we are going to call our login user. So our login loading is going to be loading until our API is done fetching the data, and then we're going to call our log user in service, and our log user in service takes our credentials, and of course it returns a promise too. So we have our response here. Okay, and then we are first going to log our response to the console.log response, and now we're going to say if response has an property of success and rest.success is true. So basically it met our expectations. Let's not log this to the console just yet. What we're going to do is we're going to call local storage, and then since we're using local storage, we're going to set CRUD app here, and then we are going to call our rest.response because our rest.response is going to be returning with our JWT token as the response. All right, and then afterwards we want to dispatch a login success event. So type of login success, and this is going to take our response. So this is if it meets all our requirements, but if it doesn't meet all our requirements, so if it does have a success property and the success property is false, then we are going to call our login error, right? So login error, and of course we'll attach the response to it. And then afterwards, if there are any errors, so basically the errors we are trying to catch. So for that, I'm just going to console.log errors. Errors. Okay, so this is our login action which is set. I'm going to save this right now. So our login action within our auth action. So I'm going to create our auth reducer. So in our reducers, we're going to have a new file here, and this new file is going to be called auth reducer.js. So for our auth reducer, we are going to declare our initial state. So our init state is going to have our login state, which is an empty string, and then our modal state, which is true. Oh, sorry, not true, sorry, our false. Okay, so we're going to call this auth reducer, and our auth reducer is going to take the state property, but initially it's going to be our init state and then the action property. So after this, we are going to call a switch that takes our action and our type. And then for now, we're not going to be handling anything with the Modal. We're just going to go straight into authentication. So here I'm going to call clear auth state. And for our clear auth state, we're going to destructure our state and then set the value of our modal state to true. Then what's the error here for? Because we missed this here. And what is this? Oh, that's because we actually forgot to return this. So let's wrap this in a return statement. Let's return this basically. And yep. So after clearing auth state, we have another case here. And this case is our login success. So if the authentication was successful, we're going to destructure the state, and then we're going to set our modal state to false. That's for login success. And then we'll have another case again, and this time around is going to be our login error. And for login error, we are going to return the destructured value of the state, and then our login state should have our action that responds. And then on the last run, we want to set the default value to return our empty state, which is our state here, just this, which is our default state. Okay, the last thing we want to do is we need to export this and then add this as part of our root reducer or into our root reducer so that it can be accessible. So I'm going to call export default auth reducer. Yep, export default auth reducer, and then our root reducer, we're going to call our auth reducer, so our auth, and then our auth reducer. Okay, so why is this not? Let's import this anyway. So import auth reducer from auth reducer. All right. Okay, so that's fine. So let me save our auth reducer and save our root reducer. Okay, so now that we have perfectly set up, we have an error here saying type is not defined in our auth reducer. So let's head over to auth reducer and type line 1219, and that's because I made a stupid mistake here. It's supposed to be actions.type. So yep. So now let's head back over to our modal form, and in our modal form we are going to dispatch our login action, which takes our fields value. So right now I'm going to save this, and then let's test. We still have an error saying dispatch is not defined, and that is because here we'll have to call dispatch to be the value of use. Dispatch. Okay, so dispatch to be the value of use dispatch, and now that error should leave. All right. So now let's head over to our browser, and I'm guessing the value is false, so let me change the value to true so that the modal is always on standby. All right, we are definitely going to put that to false and then intercept request. So what I'm going to do now is let me set this to true, and now let's just head back here, and let me get my console up, and then I'm going to clear my console, and now let's see, enter this email, click on login, and you can see here we have a success of true and our response containing our JWT token. And just to be sure that this sets in our local storage, if I do local storage.get item product, you're going to see our JWT token, which has been set here. So you can see that our application is logging in just fine, but we are not getting any response on our UI. So let's just do that right now. In order for us to be able to get a response on our UI, so let's just work on that right now. So I'm going to head back over here, and then what I'm going to do is right after our modal header in here, I'm going to have a div, and sorry, in this div, right, I'm going to have a class name, and I'm going to call this response message, and then let's just do a little styling in here so that things don't break. So I'm going to have a width, or let me give this a class name. So I'm going to call this, let's use response message. So let's start this using this response message property. So I'm going to head in here. We do not have a style.css for our login modal. So I'm going to create a new file for our login modal called styles.css. All right, and now styles.css, I'm going to have a response message, and the width would be 80%. Then margin left will be 10%. All right, and then let's just have some margin right too. This will be 10%. Margin top 10 pixels, 10 pixels, and then we want word break, no WebKit, word break, and break all. So I'm going to save this right now, and I'm going to head back to our modal form, and let's just get this way. And in here, what I'm going to do is, in order for us to be able to get the value of our login, we have to call our login state. So if I head over to our auth reducer, you're going to see something here. You can see that whenever there's a login success or a login error, can see we call the value of our modal state. This is not supposed to be our modal state. So this is actually supposed to be our login state. Sorry about that, guys. Login state. And this too is supposed to be our login. So our login state clear is going to be empty, and here is going to be our action.response. Okay, so I'm going to save this right now. And in our modal form, let's head back to our modal form. I'm then going to come over to the top here, and I'm going to have, or basically, I want to get our reducer. So our login state reducer. So I'm going to call login state, and this would call our use selector, and then we'll have our state. So this would be our auth, and then we'll call our login. Okay, so this is our login state. We have our login. So the first thing I'm going to do at the very top here of our response is that whenever our login state is not empty, all right, if the value, so let's just get this. Now, if the value of our login state, all right, is not empty, right, but or and it is loading. So basically, the value of our login state is now loading. So if I head back to our auth reducer, you can see here that we did not define that. So let us define that quickly. And let's see our auth or our auth.js action type. And we have login loading. Of course, we have login loading. So let's head back over to our auth reducer. And then I'm going to call our login loading here. So case login loading. And then we would have the structured state. And then set the value of login state to loading. Okay, so I'm going to save this right now. And now let's head back over to our modal form. So in our modal form in here, the value of our login state is not empty, but it's loaded. We want to display our loader. So I'm going to call our loader, and here this is going to be loading. And else, so basically it is not loading. So we're going to say if our login state is not empty and our login state the success property is true. Because if it's not empty and it's not loading, then it should have a success property of true, which means that it should have a success property, whether it's a true or whether it's a false. Of true means that our data is the authentication was, or true means that the authentication was successful, or false means it was not successful. So here I'm going to have a div, and then for this div, class name here, UI visible success message, and we want to have an on-click event here. The essence of this on-click event is to clear whatever is the value of our state. So whatever is the value of our of login state, sorry, our login state. So but we have not declared this function here. So I'm going to declare this function, and we have not even written the action to handle that. So clear state, but we will just keep that at the back of our mind because we're going to also do that. So after we have set our on-click property, we're then going to have an I here, and then this is an italic tag here, and we're going to have a class name of closed icon. So this would help display the icon that we want, and then we'll have another div here, and this is going to be called class name header. And why do we have this error? So let's see. Are you sure this div has closing brace? Okay, so we've closed that. So now we are going to then have a message here saying user login successful. And then right below this div, of course, you know that part of all the major thing that comes with our response here, you can see is our order has cleared, but you will see is our JWT token. And I actually want to show our JWT token too. So for that, I'm going to say login state dot response not success. Okay, so yep, this should be for success. And now if it doesn't go as planned, so let's say there's an error. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say if login state dot success is false, then we're going to first of all check if the type of login state dot success is a string. So if what we're dealing with is a string, then we are going to, let me just copy this right now. So I'm going to copy this right now, and I'm just going to change a few things. So UI visible, This is not going to be success, rather this would be, and of course we will need a close icon in the header. And here I'm going to say authentication error. So authentication error. Oops. So if type of, sorry, I'm making a mistake. If type of login success is a string, or type of login state success is undefined, right? So we don't know what that is, undefined. Then we want to show this error. And then if it's an object, so basically if the type is an object, which means it's not a string, it's not undefined, then we would use object.keys to get the key values from login state response, and then we're going to look through that using the map, and then we'll get the keys and the index position, and from there we would then display our error response. So for error response, I'm also going to copy what we have here right now, all right, and then paste that in here. So this is negative, sure, clear index, sure, but we would also need to have a key here, as these are loop objects, and in React or Vue, you always have to place a key, else you have like some stupid warnings. So here too, we're going to have authentication error. Let's leave oops here, oops, and this is going to be the logins.state.response, and then we pass the keys, so we'll have access to the keys. And that's not all. If it's none of this, then we just want to return the value of login state just the way it is. Okay, so that should do now. If I save this right now and I head over here, so let me see if I do local storage dot get item, it still exists. So let me just remove that now. So local storage dot remove item, and if I do local storage dot get item, you can see no local storage dot get item, crowd up, and now you can see that this is null. Okay, so right now let me do something. Let's just enter a random email and then a password, just, and now when I hit login, we have syntax error unexpected token in Json online 59, and then let's just head over to network to see what we get. So fail error, so we have this success or false, response is invalid username or password, and here we have success of true, response with the token. So right now I think we have a problem in our hands. Let's see what happens if I, so sorry, let me clear this, and then let me enter a valid email, login. Okay, so yeah, you can see that if this is a valid email, we have our GWT token here, and then we have our user login successful here. But then if we enter a wrong password, we get even a token which I don't know how that is being generated, and we have an error here. So what we're going to do now is let's head back to PHP Storm, and then let's go to our auth controller. In the auth controller here, so you can see the validator fails. We want to return our errors, all right, and let's say validator fails. So if the email does exist, okay, this is for, let's go back to login. Sorry, so login. All right, so in our login here, validator fails, we want to return this. If we verify, so yep, we want to return this. So if we verify that the account is false, which means that the password or the email, one of the credentials are wrong, we want to return this here. All right, otherwise we want to generate the token. All right, so but this will go ahead and generate the token using this email, even though this guy's verification is false because we failed to return this. So let's just head back here and now hit login. And what do we have here? We have invalid username or password, and then this just keeps moving. And the reason why this is happening, or the reason why this is like, is because, let's head back to application, and here we actually said that if login status success is true, do this, right? If login success is false, login success is string, and type of login success is not undefined. So this is supposed to be login response, and this is supposed to be login response. So yep. So basically, if it's an object which says maybe email, maybe you didn't pass an email before hitting the submit button or stuff like that, then we're going to basically go through it by mapping it and then getting the keys and displaying the message. So otherwise, let's just go this way. So I'm going to save this now. And yep, you can see authentication error, oops, invalid username or password. Let's see what happens if I get rid of the password and I hit login. And yep, we have an error here saying objects are not valid as a React child. Found object keys password if you meant to render a collection of children use an array. We're going to use object values to get the values that we have mapped from the keys. So object values, then we're going to call login state, and then the response. And now let's pass it. So I'm going to save this right now, and let's hit login. Yes, and you can see email must be valid email, password must not be empty. And that's the values that we have in here. Email must be a valid email, password must. All right. So if I enter a valid email right now, and the valid password login, you can see user login successful. I don't like the fact that this text is shooting out. Let's see. Okay, this is this not a p tag? And this is, let's see, response message. And for some reason, the CSS that I added to this, oh, that's because we failed to import the CSS, failed to import the styles here. So let's import. So let me see. Right, yes, so styles.css, right? Save that. And the same can resolve. Why? Our styles.css is here, and am I making a mistake? Okay. Don't worry. Let's import that in here. Since this component exists here, then that won't be a problem. Fine. Okay, so now let's save that. And can't resolve because I have not saved it. So save that now. And now head back here. And we have error cannot find Modal. Please update to the latest. So I'm going to clear this now. And I think that should be gone. So hit this button. And yep, we have this within space. Let me log in there. And yep, you can see that the word wrap, the brick word, the word wrap has actually now applied. Okay. So right now we have this, but whenever I click on this, nothing happens. So when I click on this, I want us to be able to close this. So let's just head back here. And then we are going to go to the clear state function. And remember, our clear state function is the function that we are calling every single time there's a click event on each and every one of these responses here. So for this, I'm going to create an action, an auth action here. And then this is going to be export const clear auth login. And yeah, for our clear auth login state, I'm going to return our dispatch. All right, dispatch, and then here I'll have to dispatch our clear auth state value. Yeah, and basically that should do. So in our modal form within our clear state, I'm going to dispatch our clear auth logins. Save that, and now here, let's see, get that refresh that again. And if I log in now, hit this button. So if I click on close, yep, that disappears. Log in again, click this button, and that disappears. All right, so everything is going pretty well. The last thing we want to do right now, if I, okay, let me local storage, remove item. So here, now, I remember in the last video, we were trying to create a new guest, but we encountered this authentication issue, basically because of the fact that we had an auth guard basically for certain routes, which was guarded by JWT tokens. So until the token was validated, it would never allow you to have access to certain routes. So right now, you can see that if I fill this and then I submit this, it just tells us a 411 error, that's it. But basically, we want it to be in such a situation where whenever the user's token expires at any single point in time, and then he tries to perform any request, we want to intercept that request and then show him our login modal. All right. So let's get straight into that. So now I'm going to head back in here, and now I'm going to head to our HTTP interceptor. And within our HTTP interceptor, we are going to call our modal. So basically, whenever we have a 4.1 response status, which simply means that the user is not authenticated. And remember that we are passing our store in here in our HTTP interceptor, and this is within our create store here. So we have access to our whole Redux store. So we can directly from here dispatch an action to our Redux store. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say store.dispatch, all right? And for this, I'm going to dispatch our show login modal. Show modal login, sorry. So whenever the user performs any request, and then that request has a status of 4.1, I want to show the user this modal. But this is not complete if we have not set up the reducers and as well as setting it properly from using the state within our application to using our global Redux state to handle our hide and show of our modal. All right, so we're going to do that now. So let me just save this. And then we're going to head over to our auth reducer first. And now in our auth reducer, we're going to have to call certain cases here. So our first case is going to be show modal login. And for our show modal login, all we just want to do is to structure the value of the state and then set our modal state to be true. Okay, so that's for show modal login. Next up is going to be our hide modal login. Sorry, hide modal login. And for hide modal login, we're going to structure our state, and we're going to set the modal state here to false. Okay, so let me just be sure that this imported this content. All right, so show modal hide. So just to keep things a bit cleaner here, let's get this down. Okay, all right. I just saved this right now, and then we're going to head over to our auth actions. And in our auth actions, we're going to define two functions here. So the first is display modal, sorry, and then the second is hide modal. All right, so for our display modal, we're going to return a dispatch, and here we're going to dispatch the type here of show login or show modal login, right? Show modal login, and here we are going to dispatch our hide modal login. So type here of hide modal login. All right. Okay, so right now, if I save this, we're going to head back to our modal form, but we have an error here saying hide modal is not defined. So let's get this down. Okay. So let's call this. Let's call our hide modal login. And now that error should be off. And then now let's head over to our modal form. And in our modal form, we are going to check out our use selector to get the value of our modal state here. So I'm going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to get rid of this first, and then I'm going to set this to be modal state, and then this will be modal state. And then when we use set modal state, I'm going to call hide modal, right? Not just hide modal first. I'm going to dispatch our hide modal. So just to be sure that that's it, yes, hide modal. So it's modal. So then I'm going to save this right now. We're going to head over to our browser, and now let's try the same action again. And okay, let me refresh this first, and then let's try to log in here. Hit submit, and you can see right now that our modal login comes up. And right now I can just close this and then hit submit again, and you can see that the modal login still comes up again. You can close this and hit submit again, and you can see that the modal login comes up again. And if I log in right now and then I hit login, all right, and then I close this and close this and I hit submit, and you can see that our modal login no longer comes up. Rather, we have a 500 syntax error here. Okay, so that would be just about it for this video. In the next video, we're going to continue with the CRUD operation of this application, knowing that our authentication is done. Thank you.